Yes, Hugh Freeze being fired by Auburn can absolutely have an impact on Florida State's future coaching situation.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. It is a great place to get tickets. We're going to be discussing who Florida State should try to hire after Norvell is finally out of Tallahassee. Yes, I know Florida State won against Wake Forest, but I think we all know he still needs to go. So with that, we're going to continue on this theme each and every day until something is finalized. And Hugh Freeze getting back into the mix at Auburn. Everybody thought that was going to work. It didn't. He got fired on Sunday. So we're going to discuss how that impacts Florida State. That part of it is interesting because what do you, the fans, think? Please comment in the chat all night long. And then Auburn, his impact. What does it mean? Because which guys is Auburn going after? This guy right here just happened to be on a show with none other than Zach Blackerby right before this show. Zach is the host of Locked On Auburn, and he's as dialed in as any host for any show on any network in America. He is from Auburn. He went to a high school in the Auburn area and played football, went to Auburn, graduated, wanted to go into sports broadcasting, and he's done it. His show is one of the most successful in America, and one of the guys that he mentioned to me first tonight, and that show will be going up on the Portal podcast here right after this show, was John Sumrall. So let's start right there. Who and why should Florida State fans care? Who's John Sumrall? What does he do? Why is he important? He is the current head coach of the Tulane Green Wave. He has coached and played at Kentucky. He is from Texarkana, Texas. He's, I believe, got multiple times that he's been through the state of Alabama, Troy, Auburn, etc., different stops, and he's been at Tulane a couple of times. So he knows the corridor, the I-10 corridor, as I call it, along the coast. We're recruiting Mobile and recruiting New Orleans, recruiting Tallahassee, recruiting Pensacola, all these areas, including Atlanta, Birmingham, etc., the same spots that Florida State recruits, Sumrall has recruited. He's been in the SEC. So now you got Penn State, you've got Auburn, you've got Florida, you've got LSU. Those are all big jobs. 3 of those 4 in the South. I know a lot of people are going to say, no matter what, Florida State needs to get rid of Norvell. I agree with you. This does complicate things from the following standpoints. And there's, depending on how you want to break it down, you could number it up to 10, but I really look at it from just a handful. Number 1, is the candidate that we would prefer going to be around because for whatever reason, that person prefers another school? They've got a tie to it, like Sumrall with Auburn, or is there somebody else, etc.? Every time a job comes open, your options are further limited. It's that basic. If you take nothing else from this podcast, you should probably just be reminded of that. And I know that's not a news flash, but it's still a very important note. Florida State, it's a great job for the right person. But every time a job like Auburn, who has very deep pockets, comes open, that makes it a little bit more convoluted. Not just for the head coach either. Back office staff, very important. Assistant coaches, very important. And of course, coordinators. This is a complex situation. So if Florida State does come open, which job would somebody want? Now, most people are saying, it would be Florida State. Everything is based on relationships and personal ties. Rhett Lashley, for instance, I talked about him on this show recently. He was the Auburn quarterback coach when Gus Malzahn was the head coach of the Tigers in 2013. I think he was the OC technically, but Gus is calling the plays. Who'd they play that year in the title game? Auburn played Florida State. Lashley has been at Auburn. Sumrall has been around Auburn. And there's just so many other guys It's crazy. Eli Drinkwitz was quality control on the 2010 Auburn team. All these different candidates, I'm sure Florida State would vet in some capacity. And again, it's just the volume. You never know. So let's talk about that for a second. Who else could be possibly coming open? I thought that Tennessee would beat Oklahoma and then Oklahoma would start to trend towards maybe getting rid of Venables. I was wrong. Oklahoma defeated Tennessee, and in a lot of ways, that's good for Florida State because that's just one less coach in the mix. Somebody like Sumrall, who's from Texarkana, might have looked at Oklahoma, I'm sure. But I doubt that job comes open now because they're probably going to be in the mix until at least late in the year. I don't think they're going to fire Brent Venables at Oklahoma now. We'll see. Who else could possibly come open? Michigan State, absolutely. That one probably won't impact Florida State, but they've got deep pockets. For those of you who don't know, Magic Johnson, the famous basketball player, is a Michigan State alum. He has been involved with all kinds of ventures after basketball. Not that he didn't have money anyway, but now he's just got insane money, like Starbucks, LA Dodgers, all that stuff. If he gets involved in Michigan State, that could be very interesting, like really involved, because he's never going to go broke. So I'm curious to see what that happens or what happens with that. NC State very possibly can come open. Now that's a job I think it's a rung below FSU for sure, but that still impacts possible staff. Again, just like recruits, coaches pick people more than they pick schools. I know nobody wants to hear that, but they're going to go work with their buddies. There's nothing that is more intertwined than the coaching carousel with coaches hiring their buddies. People they grew up with and played with, and they went to some school to be a GA. They're going to hire people they know because learning new systems is not fun at all. And they're going to feel familiar with those people. If you know an offense or a defense or special teams kind of situation with somebody, you're probably going to go with them. That's just kind of how the world works. But that's just the way it is. I doubt Florida State would lose a coach at the head spot to NC State, but you never know. Outside of that, as far as head jobs off the top of my head, Wisconsin, I doubt it's going to come open, believe it or not. Like they don't want to spend. So that's good. But right now, again, the main four are still Penn State, Auburn, Florida, LSU. If I had to rank them, I would personally, if I did it, I'd rather have the Florida job than LSU. Some would rather have it the other way. But LSU, that state is such a mess right now. I would put a little asterisk by it. President's changing. The AD's changing. A lot of things going on there. That state's in flux. The LSU job to me is not quite as good as it should be. And I would give the Florida job a slight edge over them. And then Auburn and Penn State, it just depends on your perspective. But I would probably put Penn State above it because they just have such an incredible base. And it's the state program in Pennsylvania where Auburn's always going to be behind Alabama. But again, it's ties. So now let's talk about Florida State from the next perspective here before we go to break. Then I'll get into the chat. We got some comments in there already. Florida State schedule coming up. Just as a reminder, they play Clemson on the road. Tough game. Come home. Last home game, they play Virginia Tech. And then the last two games are on the road. NC State on a Friday. Not good. On the road. And then they go to Gainesville. If things go sideways the next 2 weeks, and who knows? I mean, I doubt it after the way they played. But I doubted what happened on Saturday. Florida State is arguably the most difficult team in the country to predict week to week. You can make a strong argument for that. But if things went sideways 2 weeks more in a row, would they pull the trigger? Is it possible? Like if they go get beat by Clemson, who's not very good. That's one thing because it's still Clemson. But then if you lose on senior night at home to a team that's already fired their coach, that would raise some eyebrows. We're going to talk about that next, right here on Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. College football is rocking. It couldn't be more fun with all the upsets and all the things that are going on. And of course, at the games, tailgates, rivalries, and everything that happens in the stands. Watching college football live, there's nothing like it. But let's be real, getting tickets is sometimes more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, and of course, the change in price at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, and I actually just got tickets to a basketball game, 2 tickets, very easy. And I got in and out, including putting in my credit card information, less than 5 minutes. It's not hard. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day, each and every day, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. If you have not already, become an everydayer, like and subscribe to this podcast. Let's jump in the chat just for a minute, just for fun. See who's in and having some fun with this. What we got here? Kevin, I was at Doak last night. The crowd was solid. It was great. The narrative you all in the press have that Norvell has lost his team is just not accurate. They came back around, but they were not trending in that direction. Not all of us are throwing them under the bus here for doing it either. It's good that they came back around, but the way the team looked at Stanford compared to the game against Wake is completely different. What happened? I have no idea. No idea. Kevin, 15-7 at Tulane, mid. Look, you probably don't even know anything about him, is my guess. If you can prove to me that you've looked up more than his record, that's fine. But his history and everything is pretty important. Where he's recruited, the people he's worked with, all the familiarities around North Florida, Alabama, Georgia, all the areas he's recruited, they're exactly in line with Florida State. And to be clear, Florida State's not going to go out with the jobs that are open. They're not going to get Kiffin. They're not going to get Marcus Freeman. Who are you going to get? You got to be realistic here. Who's really available? Not just because they're coaching somewhere. Who is truly available? Hardly anybody ever gets the coach they want from the fan base perspective. It's because coaches don't make lateral moves. They just don't. Very rare. This is going to be one of the top 5 hires, possibly. Summerall's just one of them. I'm not saying he would be Florida State's top pick, but you want options. Every time a school like Auburn comes open, that's somebody else you're fighting with. It raises the price. It changes the timing. We're going to get into that here in a second. And it changes the assistant market. None of that is good for Florida State. All of it impacts Florida State negatively. And it's a possibility that it could hurt their chances even pulling the trigger because they don't want to compete and spend the money. Who knows? Champs 998. Nobody out there any better than Norvell. I don't know what in the world you're smoking, but that is some good stuff if you think that's the case. We better keep Norvell. Is no chance in the world, buddy. Tech may text. Yeah, this one's better. Norvell still needs to go. 100% agreed. Kevin, it's so funny. The media just assumes that every FSU fan wants Norvell gone. I'm a booster and season ticket holder. I do not. You're in the minority, and you are certainly capable of making your own mind up. But he is 2-11 or 2-12. I can't remember which in that span in the ACC. He's beaten Cal, which was terrible last year, and then the game against Wake. That's it. If you want to keep him, jump on it. Let's see. Okay, buddy. Have a nice life. If you think that's the best you can do, go right for it. But anyway, the players are all supportive of it. Keyword there you just used is all. No, they're not. They are absolutely not. I know that flat out. C Money. Norvell is a good coach of young men. Who in the world are these people? Yeah, this is ridiculous. Guy Herring. Norvell still needs to go. 100%. Let's see. FSU isn't going to pay $58 million not to coach. It's not FSU that would pay. It's always a booster. Let's be very, very clear about that. Montana Knoll. Could we use to buy out $50 million for NIL? Well, the problem is it's going to come from a booster. NIL isn't going to come from a booster. Not that kind of money. They're going to spend. They're going to pick the coach. That's just how it works. Jay Craig. If we are fine with Norvell at Florida State, I got to find a new program to support. Bingo. No, I'm not saying that you're an idiot, but if you think that Norvell is the answer, you're way out of line. I mean, he is awful. He is terrible. He can't recruit. He can't win ACC games. He barely beat Cal. Get out of here, man. You're out of your mind if you think that's the right answer. Tech. Anybody that's fine with Norvell being the FSU head coach, then they're fine with mediocrity and have a loser mentality. Fire Norvell, one win does nothing. Zachariah Pushell, absolutely. Champs, boosters are not going to pay that buyout after the stadium upgrades and player facilities. If that's the case, Florida State's in a lot of trouble. If you think it's bad now, wait till you see how the offseason goes. Bobby did more and was forced out. Yeah. Prices are different now. That is the one thing. It's a different era that Bobby was in. So it is interesting. Mickey Mason, this is a good point. That's it. It's not up to the fans. It's up to the boosters. That is 100% true. People with deep pockets, man. That's where it's at. He's not the answer. I'm just wondering where the Florida State job ranks. That's a great question because it's different for every coach. Again, just like players that are recruits pick schools based on coaches, coaches go to places they have familiarity with. Maybe their wife went to school there. Like Kiffin, his wife went to Florida. Kind of helps the Gators. Everything is based on ties. Who's coaching there? Maybe you know the AD. Who has a tie to Florida State or who has coached at least in the area? There has to be something like that that is a connection to the Florida State program. And Summerall, while he hasn't coached at FSU, he's coached around, he's recruited against, he's recruited in the same spots. He's a Southern guy. That would be one fit. This is one example. Jay Programmer, Norvell is basically a repackaged Mel Tucker. He hit one big season with a group of portal mercenaries. They were pretty good in 22, but the 23 team was good, and it was a portal situation. Tex, you need to support the Wake Forest, buddy. You'd fit right in. That's funny. All right. I'm going to head back into the main part here of what I wanted to talk about, just to kind of get this rolling again. Look, who should Florida State hire or at least try? Again, I just noted this. Somebody that has ties to the I-10 corridor in some capacity. It could be any of the following, but preferably multiple aspects of it. They've recruited the I-10 corridor, meaning Jacksonville to Houston. Anywhere through there. It is fertile. It is where Bowden made his bones. It is where Jimbo made his bones. It is where any FSU coach should. Pensacola, Mobile, Pascagoula, Mississippi, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Houston. And then, of course, you get up in Dothan, Alabama, Thomas County Central up in Thomasville, just off the I-10 corridor too. All those things are key. But anybody that you can get that's an assistant coach that's from those areas, even if they haven't coached at Florida State, maybe they coached up north, that's an assistant you can get. All those things tie in. As far as specific names, again, these are just some of the guys that I think, and everybody's certainly welcome to their opinion. Rhett Lashley, he coached at Auburn. He's coached at Miami, so he knows Alabama and Florida. Very good coach. He's at SMU. It's probably going to be pretty hard to pry him loose, but you got to try. Got to try. Jeff Braun, that one's just self-explanatory. He's just a flat-out good coach. He recruits in the state of Florida. He is elite with quarterbacks. Elite. No doubt about it. Other names, if they hire James Franklin, would I hate it? No, I just don't think you can win a title with him. That's all I'm going to say on him. Summerall has ties. I just went over him. The guy that I haven't got to yet, and I need to do a little more information and research, need to call a few more people, is Alex Golish. He was at UCF. He went up with the staff that's Heupel's got at Tennessee, was a coach there. Then he went to USF and became the head coach. He's done very well. I think that's a pretty easy fit because he's coached in Florida 2 times, not just once, and he's coached in the SEC at Tennessee. So he's recruited Georgia, especially Atlanta, which is a heavy area for FSU. He understands the love for football within the Sunshine State. He's recruited against Florida State. He's going to know the Tallahassee and I-10 corridor. All of those things, I think he would be a pretty interesting hire. Of course, Kiffin, but I think that ship has sailed. Looking around the SEC at other coaches and other guys that could in the ACC as well. Buster Faulkner, Georgia Tech's offensive coordinator, I think would be elite if you're going to go the coordinator route. But there isn't any one guy. Dion, before anybody asks, is not really an option. Obviously, his team's terrible this year, but he's got health problems. Even if he was doing good, that's going to keep him from really getting another job, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. But there is no savior for Florida State. And that's why I worry every time one of these other jobs comes open, It just mitigates what you have available. Makes it hard. It's just math because you need somebody that you not just you want, but you don't have to overpay for. Like Auburn's deep pockets. LSU's going to have some big boosters involved. Florida, the Bowl Gator Club, self-explanatory. Florida State's got a lot going on besides the coaching search that's probably still going to happen. This is complex. When we come back, we're going to continue the discussion and jump back in the chat. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed part of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has everything for you, including who's going to be the next person to score or fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Now, the last part here before I go back in the chat just for a second, Florida State has to figure out the timing of this. And that's why I went over the schedule. I'll say it again. You got Clemson on the road this week, Virginia Tech at home, Friday night game at NC State, and then the final game of the season, November 29th in the Swamp to play the Gators. If you wait till the very end, just hypothetically, how many other jobs will be open? And probably even more importantly, will LSU and or Florida and or Auburn already gobbled up 2 or 3 of your candidates? I'm wondering if Florida State, and this just flat out conspiracy theory here on my part, really doesn't want to eat the money, and they're going to use the excuse down the road, maybe not right away after the reason we didn't get rid of Norvell through back channels. They'll never put this out directly, publicly, mind you. It's because we couldn't get the candidate we wanted. Well, it's because you waited too long. We know why you waited too long, because you were afraid to spend the money. And if it's on the boosters, they don't want to spend it, then you know what? It is what it is. You get the product on the field that you get. There's no cheap way out of this. So timing is important. LSU is going to go all in. Their fan base is irate. I did a show with Matt Moscona today. He is locked in to that program like crazy. He broke the Brian Kelly news. Like he knows what's going on there. And he made it clear, by the way, that he thinks Summerall would be a great coach at LSU. So that made me feel better. He knows that state well. He's an LSU guy who lives in Baton Rouge, so he's familiar with Summerall. But he made it clear, like, they're going to go after big names in addition to him. They got deep pockets to do it. And we all know Florida's going after Lane Kiffin, but there's a chance they don't get him. What if they don't? Who would they get? So what's the timing for FSU if they get rid of Norvell? As goofy as it sounds, I know this goes against everything that people think of as a fan, but winning out is the worst thing that could happen to Florida State, because in my opinion, Norvell is not the guy regardless, and I highly doubt they win out. It's a tough schedule, to be realistic, but you can't have him come back next year. It just would not work. And I know they played well. They played well, no question, against Wake Forest, but they also laid a complete egg against frickin' Stanford. This team is too up and down. And it's proof in the Wake Forest game that they have talent, but it's also proof that it's not properly managed and coached physically and psychologically to prepare for every single week, which is the expectation at Florida State University. It's not good enough to play like a championship team against Wake Forest. No offense, but who cares? So what is the timing of this? Can Florida State pull the trigger before? Because if they wait till the end, and let's say they did, that's not good. And I know there's back channels and all that, but it kills you with recruiting. I've talked about this several times. It kills you. That's my expertise. I don't need anybody's opinion. I've been talking to recruits. There's an underclassman recruits, Florida State fan. He's getting ready to go visit Miami. I'll leave it at that. It kills you when there's an up-in-the-air head coaching situation. So they got to figure that out sooner rather than later. Let's see here. Rock and roll, what's going on, Jeremy? I still don't think they would have canned him if they had lost last night. I don't think they would have necessarily right after Wake Forest, but it's not helping them long term because beating Wake doesn't do you anything. But Jeremy's right. Probably not. But if they'd have lost that game and then lost the next couple, who knows? It's really tough to figure out the administration nowadays. Richard Brookins. I think Auburn wants to keep Norvell so the university does not have to pay out all that money, make him look bad. Alfred hired him, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but Alfred hired him. So that's awkward. Because he needs to go with Norvell, we beat one of the worst teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and now the fanboys and girls think we are back and want to keep him. Yeah, I don't think that's the case at all. It's interesting. Techman Tax, I think Virginia Tech's about to lock up James Franklin. That could be. I think that'd be a good spot for James Franklin. Ed D, I think if Norvell makes a bowl, they're keeping him. Oof. That's rough. Return to Paul Christ from Guy Herring. I assume you're talking about for Wisconsin. Man, that would be a low bar. That would be a really low bar. But you know what? Wisconsin's on a whole nother level. They are so cheap. They are so cheap. All right, one last comment here before I let everybody go. This week against Clemson, pay attention if you watch any of the press conferences with Florida State. I don't take them seriously as it relates to things that I really want. Depth chart and injuries, they don't do a very good job with that. But what's the body language with all the coaches and everything? Is it really upbeat? It should be because they just clobbered Wake Forest. I'm genuinely curious about this. They got guys to turn it around because there was some bad body language against Stanford. The commentary with Edwin Joseph and all that, and Norvell, lots of negative. But yet, what happened? They turned around the next week and beat the bejesus out of Wake. That is very rare. Can they do that 2 weeks in a row? They're going to need that kind of effort to play in Death Valley. That's one of the toughest places to play in all of American sport, college or pro. It'll be raucous. It's Florida State. They love their school. That fan base is pretty darn loyal. I'm curious to see how that goes. If Florida State staff, and I'm not going to count Norvell, he's kind of an upbeat guy, but when they do interviews this week, I'm curious about that. Pay attention to it. See what the players' attitude is too. I don't know what to expect. It's hard. I have no idea right now what I'm going to pick on Friday's episode. I always pick the score on Friday. Give my reasons for it. Right now, I'm on struggle bus because both those teams are roller coasters, especially Clemson's defense. They are a sieve. Terrible. I have no idea what's going on there. They got minimum 3 NFL players in their front 7, and they can't stop the run. Just unbelievable. So it ought to be an interesting game. Great environment, 2 rivalries, or 2 rival schools going at it in a big rivalry. I think it'll be fun, but right now I really don't know what to expect. So if you have any comments about that, you can fire away in the chat on that too. But Clemson, Florida State should always be fun. You know, that's 2 good football programs right there. Let's see. Tech. Auburn didn't hire Norvell, but he needs to pack his bags with Norvell because of how he feels about NIL. That's hilarious. This may not pan out for us fans like we think. Yeah, I mean, like it's not easy to hire coaches. It's just not. It's just not. Tech. Deuce Robinson is the perfect case study right now about why recruiting matters. No doubt. For those who don't know, Deuce was extremely highly recruited out of high school. William Matos. Then is it Jimbo? With an incentive contract. Please, Lord, no. No. Hopefully not. 21 Ryder. If Norvell, Gus, and Tony stay together for 3 years, FSU lifts up the national trophy in year 3. Mark my words. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know who this is, but whoever this guy is drugs are bad. Drugs are just bad. Don't use drugs. 5-star for a reason, and it shows. Yeah, Deuce was. Jameis Winston's brother coming to Florida State next year. That is also true. All right, I'm going to wrap up the show here. We'll talk more about this coaching situation as I get more information from Zach, more information from Matt Moscona at LSU, Brandon Olson at Florida. Like, I'll find out some stuff because every one of those jobs impacts Florida State. It very well may impact how Florida State attacks, whether or not they go after somebody behind the scenes. Every school lies about contacting other coaches. They all do it. They're all bull-faced liars. Lie. That's what they all do. So that doesn't matter. But if there's not as many candidates, maybe they do hold off on firing Norvell. We'll see who gets to the bounty first, if you will. With that, thank you very much for checking out Locked On Seminoles on a Sunday night live show. Truly appreciate you stopping in. Please like and subscribe if you have not already. We will see you again soon on Locked On Seminoles.